are listening to the Ropes and Riffs podcast with your host, John, Kiernan.
Welcome, everybody, to the Ropes and Riffs podcast. I'm your host, John Kiernan, wrestling entrance theme song composer. Today's guest is none other than Reby Hardy. You may know Reby Hardy from lots of different places, from WWE, from her time in TNA and Impact Wrestling, as part of House Hardy with her husband, Matt Hardy. You may know her from Gothic Baby as well. But you may forget sometimes that she had done music and played Matt and Jeff Hardy to the ring during their Broken Universe series, as well as had done a rendition of Live in Fear for Bray Wyatt during the Broken Universe, or the Woken Universe, happening in WWE. So we're going to talk all about those different things. We're going to talk about some of the stuff that she's done in music and all of that much more. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Ropes and Riffs podcast. If this is your first time listening, then check us out on any podcasting directory, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, even YouTube nowadays. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and leave us a comment too. I love hearing the feedback from you guys about who you may want on the show. Some different happy things and some different things that you want to see from the show. I always love hearing the feedback from you guys and hear about what you're thinking of the show. So go ahead and leave a comment. That really helps us out. And also on all of these podcasting directories, feel free to go ahead and drop a comment there as well and leave us a review. Really helps out the show. And again, I love hearing from you guys. Also, for $10 or more, if you go to PayPal and look up Ropes and Riffs, that's ROPES, the letter NRIFFS, $10 or more, I'll get you a shout out on the next podcast. So without any further ado, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And now we're going to jump into our interview with Reby Hardy. Reby Hardy with us today. How's it going?
Hi.
This is such a cool interview for me because, as everybody listening knows, we talk about music, we talk about wrestling, we talk about entrance themes, and you're somebody that on screen, behind the camera, behind the keyboard, you've done like so many different things in just not even just wrestling, but just in Reby Hardy's universe, as we say. And I'm excited to talk to you all about music and some of the contributions that you've made to that within the wrestling ecosystem. So let's just get started right off the bat. So many people have seen the piano playing that you've done for a couple of these different introductions. You had the ability to play within the Broken Universe. You've had the ability to play, which we'll get into both of these, for the Woken Universe within the Bray Wyatt ecosystem and Matt Hardy ecosystem. But let's just start right off the bat. Tell us a little bit about your musical upbringing.
Wow. So I grew up in a 17-floor apartment building where you could find one of every slice of life on every different floor. And my dad was the superintendent of said building. So on the 7th floor was a piano teacher that my dad and my mom had become friendly with. And every time we would see her in the elevator, this is what they tell me from the time I was born, they would say, "Can she start lessons yet?" And I'd be like 1. And she'd be like, "Not yet. Like, she's got to know her ABCs." Like, for some reason, my parents like had it in their head, like, she needs to do piano lessons. I don't know. It's like a prophecy. I don't know why. So they would keep seeing this little Bolivian woman in the elevator, like, "Oh, she's 3. Can she do lessons yet? Can she sing her ABCs?" And, no, not yet. So then finally I could do my ABCs. And they sent me off to the 7th floor, where I went once a week, pretty much for the rest of my life until I became a teenager. And she was so strictly classical only, which part of me at the time, I was like so upset because I wanted to play like pop music. I wanted to do like Britney Spears covers, you know, I wanted to do the Titanic theme song. And she was so old school and so just like, no, only the classics, only the masters. So I grew up with just like this classical piano only, like music education. And that's where it all started for me. And then I ended up transferring schools in my 2nd year of high school to LaGuardia in New York, which is, a lot of people know it as the Fame School from the movie Fame. Yep. And my big flex in music is that they only accept 2 second-year students to the music program per year, and I was one of the 2 auditions that got in that year. I don't know how, because
you did classical music. That's how. You gotta thank the person.
I don't know. I feel like everybody did, bro. The competition was so insane. I've never been
Yeah.
like more intimidated in my whole life, bro. But yeah, somehow made it in, and that was great. I learned violin as my mandatory secondary
Oh
instrument,
wow.
and unfortunately, I did not graduate because I ended up getting married. I was like a child bride at 16. It's a long story, so I did not graduate from there. But that's sort of my musical training in a nutshell.
But you know what's funny too, and I talk about this a lot of the times with, students that I have. As many of you know, my wife and I also run a music school. And one of the things that we've really tried to inspire in students and really try to tell families when they come in is my wife has her master's in piano performance. Mine is in commercial
Wow.
music, so technology, things like that, but like in composition. And one of the things is for me, it's always been like you should always have a strong fundamental foundation in something, but like an A minor chord is an A minor chord, whether you find it in Beethoven or Alicia Keys. And it's like so long as you're doing something where you're able to deliver like the theory and the knowledge from that side, for me, I've always been like, let's rock on whatever you want to rock on. And I know for a fact that's more of a modern philosophy of it because yeah, even when I started when I was like 9, 10, that wasn't a thing. Even with like electric guitar, it was like, oh, you'd find somebody who's like in the back of a shop or something like that, and they're like, oh, cool, I learned by ear, so let's learn kryptonite. That's a story, ladies and gentlemen. But
God.
it's just like as you go into the world of music, you can be a proficient musician, but I think we're starting to see that as many classical musicians as there are, and as good as it is to have the fundamentals, I think we're in a much better mentality shift to say, look, there's all this music out there. There's amazing pop, there's amazing rock, there's amazing classical. You know what? So long as you've got your basics down, play whatever you want, man. Resonate with what works with you.
Yeah, that I agree, man. I fought that tooth and nail, but she stuck to her word. She held her ground. So it was just classical for me. But you know what? In a way, it influenced me not only musically, but it's so funny because it influenced like my aesthetic, me as a person. Like, I've got the whole Gothic baby book that I do and the whole
Yeah.
goth aesthetic that we have in our home. And a lot of that came from just like the music that I was playing. And I associated that with like old literature and like classic movies. And it all kind of had this film noir vibe to it. So in a way that really inspired like my Phantom of the Opera phase, that like stuck with me for a lifetime. So I guess it ended up working out.
Of course, yeah. There's these little influences that just over time you're just like, you know what? Yeah. And by the way, too, the fact that you have that classical background too, it probably makes it super easy for you in a lot of scenarios. Now you're able to hear something or even be able to read it a little bit and just be like, hey, that's actually not super crazy. Like one thing that I find with a lot of musicians is the self-training stuff is totally cool, but the more of a basis you have, the less scary music becomes to learn or to write. You're just like, it's this. Okay, great. Let's figure out what makes it really cool. But you can sit down in a scenario and be like, oh, great. Here we go. It's basically this, 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 and this. So for you, it probably makes it easier to, by ear, pick a lot of these things up too.
Yeah, yeah, you're totally right. I agree.
So, in talking about all of that, one of the things from a bit of that classical background is the theme that we'll start here because we'll try to go chronologically. And by the way, if there's anything that I miss out that you want people to know, just be like, hey, I also did this thing.
I remember more than me, honestly, at this point. Stuff happens and it's behind me. I don't even remember. A lot of times people come up to me at like conventions and stuff like, "Oh, I love when you did this." And I'm like, "Why? I forgot that even happened." So, I'm gonna
So
go with you.
So for me, one of the first times that I think we saw a lot of classical music involved in wrestling was with Matt Hardy in the Broken Universe, right? And there's the third movement going on where there's a lot of fast piano playing. He's telling Jeff, he's just like, "Yeah, I'm gonna beat you up." Final deletion, that whole thing. We all know about that as the wrestling fans do. Check it out, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already. But then as time has gone on, you were able to play Matt Hardy to the ring. And I forgot to mention this part, but it all ties together. You ended up doing the third movement, and then you ended up doing a rendition of Jeff Hardy's Obsolete too. So walk us through a little bit of what it was like, the process of you going, you know what? I want to go ahead and play this, not just a digital keyboard, ladies and gentlemen, an acoustic piano. They rolled that out on TNA Impact. They did, and that was on stage. That was super
I
cool.
I can't believe that was able to happen too, with a baby on my back on top of it.
Yep.
Imagine I was like, oh my God. Well, from the beginning, it's funny because years before the whole Broken universe had even happened, I had gotten into a phase where I wanted to do wrestling covers on piano. And I kind of wish I had been documenting this because I feel like it really would have popped off, but it was really before I was doing like my social media stuff. But I had done a whole compilation of every one of Matt's themes. And he's got a billion because he's had a million gimmicks
Yep.
even before the Broken thing. And I did a compilation of his themes on piano. And it's funny, I have it uploaded to my Facebook. It looks so ridiculous. It's like me on my little electric piano, like in my bedroom, like everything looks crazy. But it ended up pretty much being that that's what that was. Even the beginning, the very opening notes of when I first played Matt and Jeff out, when we first started doing the piano entrances, especially the Bound for Glory one was the big compilation
Yeah.
one of all of their themes and the obsolete. The beginning, and Matt was really adamant on this. This was like his one input. He's like, I want the Hardy Boys theme in there. I'm like, Matt, you realize this is like a single guitar riff that the Hardy Boys
Right.
like, how the fuck am I gonna play that on the piano? Like this makes no sense. So I tried to do it like really slow and dramatic, and honestly, no one realized that's even what it was. I wonder, did anybody, I don't know, like literally maybe two people out of like hundreds that I've spoken to
Yeah.
realize
I
that
caught
was
Live for the
actually the
Moment.
notes
I
for
caught
the opening
Oh my
of the Hardy
gosh.
Boys theme.
See, I caught Live for the Moment and I caught some of the other ones, but like, yeah, no, but the thing is too, and this is where we're gonna get a little bit theoretically heavy, ladies and gentlemen. The key that it's in, like the Hardy Boys theme, I'm pretty sure is in, it's in like D or something like that, right? Like D minor or something like that. And all of a sudden you have this music that's in not that
Like
key.
four
So,
octaves higher and mega legato. So if people don't, I mean, I know it's there, and it is literally, I mean, once I say it, you'll probably be able to hear it, but like, that is what it is.
but see, also the way that you tied in obsolete into that whole performance too, it's everything is kind of just like a step up. So you going right into E minor with obsolete, it fits so well that one. So I can imagine you're
And
sitting there, you're like, that was great, but I don't
no.
know, man.
I
That
I
first
knew what
one,
obsolete had to be in because I knew that Jeff needed it to be in a certain key because Jeff was
sure,
singing it. So from that, I had to kind of build the song backwards in changing every key to be able to lead up to the key that Jeff was able to sing in. So that's how that happened. A lot of people don't know this either. Originally, and this whole thing was Billy Corgan's idea. He was kind of running the TNA behind the scenes at that point, and he wanted me to sing it. And I was like, my guy, like I could sing it. I would be happy to sing it. I would love to sing it. Actually, like what an amazing opportunity, right? Like sing and play the piano on TV, like stunt, like what a flex, right?
yeah,
But I'm like, I feel like the wrestling fans would rather hear Jeff sing it. And it was almost like a little back and forth because he really wanted me to sing it for some reason. And I'm like, I get it. But trust me on this. Like, let me, not that I'm like calling the shots or like making the calls or whatever. I was like, I really think that people would rather hear Jeff sing it. And then it could be like the three of us and it would make sense. And he could be like, on the piano singing it. And Matt's there being crazy because he can't do anything else. And I'm playing the piano. So, and I'm so glad that we ended up doing it like that because that ended up being so iconic and just such a moment.
yeah, it fits so much. And like you're talking about it also not just from the musical side, but from what the people are expecting, from the visuals, from all of that. And like it would be really cool to have Reby Hardy basically being the show. But in that moment, you had the capability to be like, you know what? It's about the Hardy family. It's about what
Yeah.
we're doing in the whole universe here. So yeah, that was a great call. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm so glad. And it's funny because I'm a huge like Twilight Zone fan. I've always have been. And my favorite episode, people say Twilight Zone fans that you could tell a lot about a person from what their favorite Twilight Zone episode is. So my favorite Twilight Zone episode has always been, and I have myself on record saying this like 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, the obsolete man. It just speaks to me. It's so, so another thing was at that time, I think Game of Thrones was really popping off, and the season had just aired where they were like shaming the queen through the town,
Yep.
and they were going, what were they saying? I don't even know. I don't even remember what they were saying. What were they saying?
I forget.
They were shaming the girl through the town, and they were like, whore, whatever the hell they were saying to her. And that idea was kind of like shaming Jeff, saying obsolete, obsolete, like running him through the crowd, saying obsolete. And he had an original song that he had done, I guess, with his band.
Yep.
And I don't know if it's called obsolete or if there was just obsolete in the chorus or what, but that's totally how that ended up integrating all together and becoming a song and becoming part of the entrance. It was like Twilight Zone, Game of Thrones, Jeff's random thing, my favorite episode, and all like magically came together. So I'm so glad.
Yeah, and even talking about that, the first time that I had heard obsolete, I was just like, oh yeah, this is something they came up with because in story they ripped away everything that Jeff was and they did the Brother Nero. You all know that. But like you started playing it and I'm like, oh my God, this is like how do you even come up with something for that? Probably just off the melody. And then I look up the album that Jeff put out and I'm like, wait,
Yeah,
so she took that and put
he
that
happened
here.
to have a song. I mean, but like, what are the odds, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, it really was like Cosmic. It just fit together. And I didn't even know that song existed. I didn't even know he had. I've never listened to any of his stuff, so it's just meant to be, I guess.
So when you go to do the Bound for Glory series or the Bound for Glory performance, and there's this conversation of okay, they're going to do this entrance. At what point do we come to okay, Reby's going to play us to the ring? Is this something going into that it's like, hey, it's a big match, so we're going to do it? Bound for Glory being one of the bigger TNA Impact things, or is this something where Matt's like, no, we should bring in my wife to do this awesome rendition for us? Like, what is the connection between that between
It was
you?
Billy. It was
Okay.
Billy Corgan who made that call. Yeah, and I'll always be so grateful to him because again, so iconic. But I found out a week before and I was like, "Oh my God, oh shit, like have to write an arrangement, like make it make sense, put it together with everybody that's going on." And then also I had to time it. And that morning, Bound for Glory specifically was so crazy because number one, that morning I found out I was pregnant with my second baby.
Oh
That
wow.
morning.
Okay.
The week before that, I found out it was happening, period. So I had to like make gear originally I was going to be wrestling. I was going to be a huge part. It was going to be like this tag team match. Like I was going to be physical with Rosemary. It's going to be a whole thing.
Yeah.
I had to make wrestling gear. I had this like vision for like a big sweeping train coming out of the piano and stuff. So I had to make that ridiculous thing. That morning I found out I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. But it was funny having to time it because it's obviously live and I don't know how fast or slow the boys are going to go. They don't even know. It's different every time. They'll tell you one thing, it'll be something different. So I'm over here like trying to keep my tempo, right? Trying to like make it make sense, trying to add on measures if I need to, like looking over my shoulder, like, are they at the ring yet? Are they going to delete? Are they going to
Right.
talk to the crowd? I'm like freaking out every time I have to play this song live because every time it was different. I'm like, can we just like figure out what we're gonna do in a set time? But it was different every time. It was the most stressful thing in the fucking world, especially Bound for Glory, because on top of that, I had to take off my big dramatic gown that I had made, and I had to make it myself into the ring. I had to finish the song, let them do their thing, come into the ring, and then I had to get taken out because I couldn't even participate in the match like we had planned because I was pregnant and finding out that morning. So that whole day was just so many moving parts and so many things happening, but
It's
somehow we pulled it together. Somehow we made it work.
it's funny though that you mentioned like you had to figure out the timing and little things because if people remember the ending when you went or when the boys were in the ring, right? You're doing these arpeggios in E minor. You're doing all this stuff. And part of me when I was watching, I
Going
was
on and
just
on
like
because they won't fucking stop moving.
you're just like, I'm doing these things. I'm crossing the hands. You guys good? You guys good? I
Yeah.
gotta stop this, guys. Come on, let's go.
Can you
E,
please
and then we're
delete?
here.
No, because that's the worst. Imagine I hate dead air, right? And especially when you're live, that's like everyone's worst nightmare. So
Yeah.
imagine just being in the ring and no music, silence, nothing. So I was like, fuck, it's really on me. Like I can't kill the vibe. Like
That's awesome. And so now we go from doing that, and Matt makes his way back to WWE with Jeff and everybody there. And as the Broken Universe turns into the Woken Universe and everything is brought into there, there's this feud that starts up with Bray Wyatt because why wouldn't it, right? Bray is amazing. Matt and them had such an awesome feud and everything going on. And yet again, you get the ability to be able to play another entrance theme, Live in Fear, which, in terms of just themes in general, nerding out for a second, that's one of my favorite themes of all time. And apparently, it was either a library track. I'm pretty sure it was a library track from Mark Crosser. And I just think I'm like, man, there's so many iconic themes over time. But the fact that that one was like a library track, that they're like, oh, here, this is just perfect. it was such an awesome theme. And then for you to be able to transition it into a piano rendition, how does that come into play?
I couldn't believe it, honestly. I thought, my little moment at TNA was going to happen, and that was my 15 minutes in music wrestling, and that was it for me. I mean, honestly, produced by Billy Corgan, I'm like, I'm good. I could die happy tomorrow. But when WWE decided they wanted to kind of bring the whole Broken universe characters and all, Senor Benjamin, my dad,
Yeah.
the kids, me with the piano, I thought, wow, I cannot believe this. And that was so stressful because that's the first time I've ever had to record my music in a studio. I had to find a studio. Of course, everything is last minute, right? So I had 2 days that I had to write this composition, like do my rendition of Bray's thing, find a studio in the middle. We live in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, North Carolina. It's not like I'm in New York and I can just, book a studio. I called 5 different places. The place I even ended up, it was the craziest spot. Anyway, so get to the studio and I had to like record it on my own. I was so nervous. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. The producer there is so confused. Like he's like, it's too much pedal. It's too much, I'm like, I don't care. This is how I do it. Like, shut up. Like, I don't want your feedback. Like, it was like,
Hit the button, friend. Hit the
oh
record
yeah,
button.
my guy, just put the thing, makes it. But yeah, that was so cool. Get it over to them last minute, and we ended up shooting like in the forest, in the middle of the Hardy compound, on an electric piano. The track had already been done by then, so I think they had it kind of playing on a Bluetooth speaker in the background while we were filming it. But that was so cool, and it was really great to. I love that song. I loved his song. So it was cool that it was a song that I actually like. I love minor keys. I love slow and dramatic and emo and melodic. So it was really perfect for me. And looking back, it's like I can't even listen to that song honestly now. Like Bray, what happened to him really fucked me up. Matt too for a while. I think I'm still fucked up over it, honestly. But it's just so crazy that I have that connection there, and he loved it, and it was so cool that he loved it, and it meant so much
I
to
was gonna
do.
say, I feel like Bray would probably have heard that song and was just over the moon with it because he was so about his character. And while I've never gotten the opportunity to meet him, unfortunately, so many people that are in my life have, and everybody, including yourself, have nothing but amazing things to say about him and being able to work with him. And it was just, even for me, when I go and perform on stage, many people may see that the pants that I have are totally the black version of his pants that had the birds coming up it. So for me,
Oh,
Bray was such a big part for me too. And I remember hearing that piano thing and just being like, man, you couldn't get a more perfect. Like if you told somebody, create a piano album of just wrestling themes. I think that was probably the most honest and the most real that you could have gotten, and the closest you could have gotten to the most perfect one. I think it was
thank
fantastic.
you. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That was actually my first time working with like an arrangement too, because I added synthetic violin, which I've never done. I'm always just like straight piano, or if I'm doing something, I'm just dicking around and no one's ever gonna hear it.
Yeah.
But that was cool. Like adding that, I was like, oh, it needs like a little bit more like depth, like richness, like drama. And I added the
Yeah.
synthetic violin there, and that was really cool. So thanks.
When you did that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may have heard this incorrectly. You went into the studio to record that. Did you have something already written out for it, or you were in the studio listening to it going, okay, cool, here's what I'm going to do with it?
That morning, literally, I just kind of had it in my head what I was going to do. And I had it in my head, I'm going to kind of have a backing track to add like a little bit of harmony and a little bit more depth with those violins that I like added in myself, mind you. Like I added that in post, like in iMovie or some shit, like mixed it myself. Yeah. So
So, ladies and gentlemen,
very
understand
nice.
that piano rendition of Live in Fear was basically done that day. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it really was very, very, very stressful because I also just as a musician, not that I'm a career musician, but I'm thinking like this is my moment. Like this could be probably the biggest stage that my original music's ever going to be on. Like if I mess this, like it could go really great, and this could be the first thing on a resume of a great lucrative career. Maybe if I want to go down that path a little more seriously in the future, or this could be
Yeah.
my biggest flop, and then I'm a joke, and everyone, there's so many people to this day who are like, she wasn't really playing the piano, she was just pretending, and I'm like literally, what? You can hear me fuck up. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Oh my
what
gosh.
do you mean? So it's like as something that had been part of my life for pretty much my whole life before I was even consenting to wanting to be in music, it meant a lot to me personally, not just as oh, this is a cool moment and oh, cool wrestling and TV. It was kind of like it's sort of like everything in your life has led up to this. Like this is your moment here. Like don't fuck this up. So yes, a very stressful day.
Oh man, I'm just envisioning you in the car and like I don't know if you were there with Matt or you were there with other people, but you're just in the back or you're in the front and you're driving. Like this happens to me. There are some times where I have X amount of time to write a theme for somebody or to write a piece for film or whatever. Or there are some times when someone goes, "Hey, we need it like 10 minutes ago." And I'm like, "All right, great." So you're sitting there like making dinner or doing whatever or driving somewhere. And this seems like it's kind of the same way for you. For me, when I'm doing that and I don't have anything in front of me, I still kind of have the guitar in my head because my primary is guitar. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Here's what this would look like. This key, this, and this. And so by the time you sit down at the instrument, you kind of have a general idea of what you're going to do. And then your hands are
Yeah,
going to kind of do the thing. And you hope that they do the thing the way that you need them to do the thing. But
exactly.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Literally it. Yeah. I don't think I have like the technical like music theory to be able to like Beethoven style like sit and write on a keyboard, that sounds a little crazy to me. So it's kind of a lot of like hearing things in my head and then playing in my head by ear and just dicking around till it's hopefully works out. Luckily, I had a really great piece to go off of in the first place. So
Of course. And now I know that you said at the beginning of our conversation here, you had said, hey, I want to go ahead and do a record of just piano renditions of just wrestler entrance themes over time. I still need to look up the one that you've done already. But if you were to go back or go forward, because time moves this way, and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and put together a small record full of those. Are there any that just off the top of your head, you're like, oh, I'd love to do this one? We have some obvious ones that, you may include or you would have included, like the two that you've done already. But are there any that you're just like, I haven't done that one? That would be sick.
gosh, I really like the song. Oh, it's like from the 90s. It's like from the 2000s. I don't know anything about wrestling. I'm so sorry.
No, no.
Oh no. I
You know
think it's
whose I would see that would be really cool for you to do? You'd probably knock out Nakamura's like easily because he
oh,
has that
I
whole
don't
like,
know it.
oh, it's really cool. Yeah, it's I'll send it to you afterwards, but
Oh,
it's one that
cool.
yeah, he's done two. The one they do in WWE is really cool. It's in A minor. You see me do that every now and again. I have perfect pitch, but I have to kind of sing the note to be able to see the
Yeah,
color
yeah.
and things like that. So I'm just like, so it's in A minor. It's really cool. It's got like this Japanese flair to it. But he had one he used in New Japan called Subconscious. That one's really cool too. It's really upbeat, very Japanese sounding, obviously, because their composer does that. But it's a really cool one. I think you'd crush that. Oh my gosh.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to try it. It's just I've got so many things on my plate. I don't know how I get through the day, honestly. But it's one of the things that I really want to do. And I bet someone's gonna end up beating me to it because I've been saying this for years and haven't done it. But I need to just do it before somebody else does it, honestly.
But you know what? Someone else could do it. No one's going to do it like you, and you're not going to do it like them. So that's super cool. It'll be
Oh.
all original to that. So, but the cool thing
Thank you.
also is even with the piano stuff that you've done, you have, in what I would say, a very eclectic taste in music too. Like you do your live streams over on socials and all that. You're putting together, as I was saying over on TikTok, this crazy costume for your kid where it's literally just like, I don't even know. You're just like, oh yeah, I'm piecing this together. It's this. I'm like, I don't even know where you would start. And you've got this crazy, awesome, like electronic music, almost MSI style, let's say, and very like all over the place. So you have such a
Yes.
wide variety of music that you seem to love. What are some of the musicians that for you you're like, oh, I love this?
Oh man, I guess I'll reference my like Spotify Wrapped or my Apple Music or whatever.
Well,
And
keep
number
that
one
up too,
is
because I am going to go ahead and ask you something Spotify at the end of this.
oh, it's number one is Bad Bunny. My number one influence is always going to be Latino music. I'm Puerto Rican, so that ties in a lot to everything that I do, really. And then it's a lot of I don't know. It's a lot of like slow and melodic and my favorite band is Muse, for example, right? Because I
Oh,
feel like
great
they
band.
have the
Yeah.
alternative, the rock, but they have a ton of classical influences in there. So the kind of that's like my vibe, I would say. And
I
then
can get with that. Yeah, that's awesome.
anything dramatic, I feel like is kind of my thing for sure.
And Muse goes from like Absolution, where it's just this ridiculously grand piano, to like Supermassive Black Hole, to all these things. Like, I feel
Like
like
a choir, like yeah, just
yeah,
all
when you turn around and you were just like, what should a band be when they group people together? Instead of just like, oh, they have to be this style. Muse is like, all of it. When I write something,
yes.
let's try it. So
That is literally like I don't think you could get any better musically than Muse. In my opinion, that's like the epitome. Like just if I had the talent, if I could do that, that would be what I would do for sure. That style.
that's awesome. Now, in terms of any other places that you've had your music placed, because like you said, you're doing a lot of other things. You've done the Bray Wyatt theme, you've done the Broken Universe theme. What else in music would Reby Hardy like to do in their life? Not even just tomorrow, but what other things in music? Where would you like to see it take you if it could?
I see things happening for other people and people I know that comparison is the thief of joy, but you can't help but see sometimes other people doing stuff and you're like, why are you doing that? Like, what, why not me? You're not even that good. I do that a lot. And I'm on TikTok a lot. So that happens a lot on TikTok. I see people with like, one viral video and the next thing they're a musician with like a crazy pre-purses beat or something. So I would love to do something like that, but really do everything myself. Maybe like but my dream is to do like a Halloween track, sort of like akin to Mariah Carey has like her Christmas theme,
Oh
she's like
yeah.
Queen of Christmas. I would love to do a Halloween track in the same vein, just to kind of go with my home decor and the goth aesthetic and the music and everything. I feel like that would be really perfect. One
Well,
day.
well, now you see that she has the accompaniment now to, All I Want at Christmas Is You. Now in 2024, she broke out of the gothic thing and she's like, it's time to
Yeah.
do the Christmas. So there was a little bit
Castle.
of
I'm
it.
like,
Yep.
bitch, that's amazing.
That's super
Yeah.
cool. Well, I would love to hear a Halloween written, inspired by, and composed by Reby Hardy
I've
track.
got
We
it.
could totally
I've got
set.
it in my notes. I need to find a producer. Is it you? Do you want to do the song?
I am so down. I'm always down for that.
Let's do the
So
song.
let's do
Listen.
it. That'd be great. Now, before I let you go today, one other question that I ask everybody who's ever come on the show is if you had to make a Spotify playlist and you had to choose three songs that represent you, what would those three songs be?
Gosh.
It's always the hardest question I ask everybody. Everyone's
It
like,
is
yeah, let's talk
hard.
wrestling, let's talk music. Yeah, I won this title. Yeah, this guy, whatever. You're asking me about the music that represents me? What are you doing?
You know what? I might be the only person who actually has answers ready to go because
Oh,
you know
yeah?
what? I have a playlist that I want played at my funeral.
Oh, all right. All right.
So I have a set list of songs that I want played at my funeral, and I guess that would be as close to representing a person as anything else, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the songs are um, "Flight" by Sutton Foster. It's a duet between two girls. It's like just nearly acoustic, but it's very like kind of what you want your spirit to end up being, like what you want to be. And then I would say New York State of Mind, Billy Joel.
Great one.
And the third one, I don't know. I'm still getting there. But maybe something from Phantom of the Opera. Maybe wishing you were somehow here again, something like that.
Oh
or
man.
think of me. I don't know, something like that.
See, that'd be a great one. We've always joked about for my funeral, what would you do? It'd be like Frank Sinatra's My Way, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And you know what, too? That playlist of what songs would I have at my funeral is just that also fits the aesthetic. It's
You
so
know, I'm
cool.
psychotic though. I'm to the point where and I'm thinking, God, I live life like this all the time. I could die tomorrow. I feel like that's why I have my hands in so many different pools of water at all times because I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna die tomorrow. Um, I need to just go ahead and do it just like my fucking piano wrestling album. I want to record the songs myself.
Yeah.
So drama, right? The drama. Imagine like you're singing your own curated playlist, set list of songs at your own funeral with your own voice, your own track. I think that would be great. I think, you know what? It's right. It's your final party. Might as well just go out, right? With a bang.
It'd
So
be crazy. It's so funny too when you're a musician because you think of things like that too. Both from an artistic side, like, man, what music would I have at my funeral? Huh. Maybe
you
I
gotta
could
set the
play the
vibe.
music you're gonna hear. Man.
Literally. Do every part, every instrument, do every melody, right? Harmonize with yourself. And then
That's
see if anybody notices. And I bet you no one it would notice, but
unless like someone's leaving and they just hear, they're like, wait, this was such a beautiful thing. That wait, is that Reby? What are we doing? And then they're there for they're at the wake for like another 20 minutes. They're like, oh my God, the water wells start again. Ugh.
oh God.
And
Yeah.
you have your piano in your home, I'm assuming.
I have four. Yeah.
You have four.
I'm insane. I have an antique upright piano from 1864 in my dining room. Then the next room over, which I can't wait until my kids get a little bit better at music because then we could do dueling pianos. The next room
Oh, that'll
over,
be
I've
fun.
got my baby grand. And then in our room where the wrestling ring is, we've got a white baby grand. And then I've also got an electric piano, which is where I've recorded the majority of the tracks, which is so insane. Aside from the studio track that you hear for the Bray Wyatt theme, I recorded everything on my little rinky dink electric piano from Sam Ash in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's like a $400 piece of shit. And literally that is what I've recorded on. I tell people that they're like, this is what you use. I'm like, the ghetto, I know, but
Hey,
it's
don't feel bad about that at all. I've talked to the boys from Downstate and Cody Rhodes' theme Kingdom. That was written and recorded on $100 guitar. Like, don't feel bad at
all
all.
right.
Yeah. You know what? It's not the instrument. Like, yes, it's cool to get expensive instruments if you can ever afford it. But at the same time, it's about the creativity, what you do with it. And you know what? People can make a $2,000 instrument or a $20,000 acoustic piano sound terrible, and people can make $100 guitar or something
Yeah,
even like that sound
you're
awesome.
right.
So
All I need is a damper pedal, really. I'm good.
that's a shirt. All I need is a damper pedal. Well, Rebby, it has been absolutely awesome chatting with you today. Thank you so much for your time. I know there's a little bit of a different conversation than a lot of people may have in the wrestling industry, but again, with someone with such your background, such musicality, and such an interesting road within the world of artistry, I'm so thankful that we had this conversation today.
Thanks. Oh my God. Thank you so much. This was cool. I wouldn't have done any other wrestling thing, so this worked out.